Cool. Hello, everyone. We are still without audience, but it's fun to have you on my channel, Smokey. Thank you. Thank you very much for being with me.
Oh, of course, Atangelo. It's always a pleasure, my brother and
Yeah,
friend. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
yeah. It was very nice to have you yesterday at my debate with Tony Reed.
Was a pleasure indeed. Absolutely. Anytime.
I think it went very well. I'm satisfied how how it went, and I was surprised there was actually quite a number of people on watching the debate. So it was really fun.
Yeah, you're dragging a nice crowd, and I do know that there's kind of a lack of neutral debate communities yet having emerged. And James is almost on modern day debate is almost kind of on the front edge of that. So I love that we can have some of these more neutral platform debate communities start popping up. So I'm behind you 100% on that.
Yeah, yeah. So the topic this afternoon, Smokey, is morphogenesis of eukaryotic cells, structure and shape by random chance, evolution or design.
Beautiful.
Um, um,
Would you
I
like to provide a link and I'll put it up on my screen and you can share? Would you like to do it that way?
Yeah, that is okay.
Perfect.
I want to learn how to use these functions
Oh, if
so
you
I
want to do it
can.
on your side, you can. It's a little easier if you have two screens. But what you'll do is you'll have just share your front screen in front of you. Press that little button down there, share screen. And if you
Share
have
screen. Yeah.
audio, yeah, if you have audio, you want to make sure you have that little checkbox in the bottom left corner checked where it says share screen audio. If you don't have that checked, no one will be able to hear what you play on your screen. So it all
Yeah. No.
depends what you're doing. But just select your screen, select share, and it'll bring it up.
Yeah. Share screen. What happens now? I
There
did
should be
something
a
wrong.
box
Yeah.
pops up that'll give you
Yeah,
an option to select.
I had a pop-up, but I
Then
didn't
you want
know
to
how.
select the screen. You want to actually click on the screen you're sharing in that box.
Yeah,
So
now it says your browser has blocked your screen. Click the screen icon in your address bar to allow access.
yeah, you have to.
Then you
Yeah, your
load the
browser's
page.
probably blocking access, so you have to allow that.
So now I link our check here. Let me check that.
I think I'm gonna pull up my I'm gonna pull up the stream on my side actually. Who is this? Oh, here we go. Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, I would like to do that actually. Standing, thank you for offering. Um, let's see here. We might do a review. I don't know. We might do a review here on a couple things. Gosh, I just, I don't know what it is about the online world, I think maybe encouraging people to communicate with keyboards and text a little bit too prolifically has just caused an overall degeneration in our methodology and capacity for communication. I think it's like we've devolved. It's like we've gone back a few steps because of how we've decided to operate in terms of communication through primarily text. I mean, like this is a stinking 17th, 16th century problem. You got people so far away, and you don't have telephones, you don't have emails and all that stuff. So what do? You write letters, you send correspondence, you use the Pony Express, whatever the heck it is. Okay, and we imagined, we dreamed of the day that we would be able to have more personal voice communications with people over distances. And what do we do? What do we do when we finally manifest the technology to do pretty much exactly that? Increase a level of personage a level of intimate interaction with people and public. What do we get? What do we get? We get the reemergence of the email and the text and everything else to separate us yet again from that layer of personal interaction, which we are oh so capable of indulging in this modern day of technology. What is going on? I mean, what is happening, ladies and gentlemen? I struggle with this sometimes. Completely not on topic, but I actually need a Tangelo here to go on the topic anyway. So, oh well, I guess I don't technically. I mean, I could actually even just pull up the article.
Okay, I'm back.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Let me check now.
Oh, by the way, Tangelo, when is your you have a debate tonight, right?
Yes,
Okay, so in Standing was asking if I want a co-mod, and I'm totally fine doing that. But what time is it? Do you know?
it's in 5 hours.
In 5 hours, that would be 5:30. Oh, that's fine. Oh yeah, I'll totally do that. Okay, awesome. Let me respond to that email right now. Oh, and we're getting oh, by the way, Tangelo, we're getting Dr. Fuzz Rana to come and do an interview on my channel on the 11th and Maddox's channel on the 10th. So that's just going to be awesome.
That's fantastic.
In fact, once we're done here, I need to hop in and probably finish that thumbnail. Probably gave myself a little too much to do today. But anyway, let's move on to your topic.
I'm unable to put Chrome to show, so I will use the Opera.
Okay.
browser.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's good that we don't have much audience, so I can figure these things out right now.
Oh my, yeah, my first two streams or first several streams were just complete and utter disasters. I deleted them. So but that's how it always is. Your first several streams, you're testing it, seeing how it's going. It's a process.
Yeah.
What was I doing? Oh, email. Right. That's right.
Got it. So let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger with Zoom. But I think that's not gonna happen. Let me check now.
I don't know if Snake is going to be on good behavior tonight at Tangelo. What do you think?
Oh, I've never debated him, so I have no idea.
He doesn't like you. He doesn't like you to finish your thoughts sometimes. Like he did that to me really, really badly when I was talking to him that night. Like he just wanted to. He was basically playing the same game Skylar was playing earlier, which was finish my answers for me, and then critique the answer. Like it's very frustrating. So I think that's one thing we'll have to keep an eye on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He does have a tendency to do that.
Yeah, I try to be polite and let him speak. And as I did with Tony, when he finishes his talk, then I will give my answer. And if he will interrupt me, then I will ask him kindly to wait until I finish my answer and then let him talk.
Oh yeah, we'll only jump in if it gets really out of hand. I don't think that'll happen.
I think the one guy that I had most difficult with was Tom Jump. He was very, very rude and disrespectful. He didn't let me talk.
Yeah.
It was very, very. I did want to stop the debate with him because it was really frustrating. It was really frustrating. So let's have a look here at my.
Okay, let's do it. Absolutely.
My work here. Shall I just read it and what do you? It's not so much to read, so I can read it and if you have any doubts or so.
Yeah.
Okay. The morphogenesis of eukaryotic cells, structure and shape, is due to at least 38 different mechanisms. They are classified in two groups: the molecules that provide complex instructional cues of action based on information through signaling, and secondly, by force-generating molecules that are directed through those signals. So this is really something very, very revealing to me, because our traditional view, Smokey, is that The genetic code produces proteins. These proteins, they are directed to their final destination, and then they start their job. But here we have a completely different dimension where 38 different signaling mechanisms orchestrate what happens inside of the cell.
Now, those signaling mechanisms would be coming from basically signals in the RNA and DNA.
No, these are all epigenetic signals.
Okay.
These are epigenetic codes,
Okay.
and there are 23 different epigenetic codes, but there are also signaling pathways. We don't have actually an understanding where these codes are stored. Science has no answer to that. Also, the breaking of the code has not been done yet by science, so they don't know how that codification actually happens.
Hmm.
Okay, but
Okay. So they don't know
what is yeah?
they don't know what the emergence source is of these 38 essential components, essentially, right? They have
Well,
no
we don't.
explanation
We
for that.
we actually know the codes, which codes they are. I can link to them.
Okay.
Let me let me find that. I link to it.
When I was reading your article on Facebook, it was reminiscent what you were saying about the signals. And you say here they are classified into two groups: the molecules that provide complex instructional cues of action based on information through signaling. And secondly, by force generating molecules that are directed through those signals, which are responsible for cell morphogenesis.
Yes,
Interesting.
yes. They are basically the directors of all these different um, molecules inside of the cell, like the tubulins and actins and the matrix, extracellular matrix, and there are spectrins. There are actually four different um, webs which construct literally they scaffold the shape of the cell, and that's amazing.
Hmm. Interesting.
Okay, here we have the epigenetic codes. Okay,
Okay.
they are the genomic regulatory code, that's the genetic code. Then we have the splicing codes, metabolic codes, signal transduction codes, signal integration codes, the histone code, tubulin code, the sugar code, the glycomic code, the non-ribosomal code, the calcium code, the RNA code, a domain substrate specificity code of non-ribosomal peptide synthetases, the DNA methylation code, the co-activator, co-repressor epigenetic code, the transcription factor code, the post-translational modification code for transcription factors, the HUX code, the synaptic adhesive code, the apoptosis code, the ubiquitin code, the bioelectric code, the transcriptional cis-regulatory code, and the sorry, neuronal spike rate code. So
Wow.
these are 24 different epigenetic codes, Smokey, and um, they are all involved in organismal building.
Wow. And they all have to be complete, functional, coherent, as I think Maddox would probably say, Turing complete. They all have to be there and all in sequence and working in perfect order all at the same time. So here's the thing that I would look at this from a digesting it from my perspective, is that from a naturalistic point of view, I would imagine that you would have to be able to say each one of these codes was at some point doing something simpler, something other than what it's currently doing, and it evolved or progressed until it reached a state of functionality to where it would actually work inside this list with all the other items inside this list. Is this maybe what they would have to pitch at us?
Yeah, but you see, there will start immediately very, very severe problems. I will give you an example with the cell cycle. The cell cycle has 16 regulators in the eukaryotic cells. Okay, and you need to have all these cells regulators in place in order to control the cell cycle. And if one is missing, it breaks down. The cell cannot replicate in an orderly manner.
Mm. Is there any scientific hypothesis to the origin of those components, Otangelo?
Well, of course, they will just say it's evolution, you know. But
Of course, it's naturalism. It's
so
always just naturalism.
yeah, so here you have the cell cycle regulators. There's 16 regulators which control the action during the cell division, and they are all necessary. And you had when the first eukaryotic cell started to replicate, it had to have all these cell cycle regulators in place. So how could that happen in a evolutionary stepwise fashion?
Exactly. What were all those regulators doing before they were regulating? Like
Yeah,
what step
yeah,
process led all of these components to just, I don't know, reach their point of final complex specific usage, all coherently and synergistically aligned with each other, with all of their equal level of complexity. You know, this moves a little bit beyond a tangent, in my opinion, the chicken and egg problem. This is like chicken and egg problem like times 30. Like you have to have all these things popping up all at once, not just two things, not just three things. You want to talk about rolling the dice to the like absolute extremes of mathematical impossibility. Here you go, folks.
yeah. And as I am writing here, my comment, the first event of cell division of a primordial cell would have had to be as precise as in modern cells, with all the 16 cell cycle regulators in place, since they are essential. If one is missing, the cell cycle is not completed. That is another intractable abiogenesis challenge, because these cell cycles, they don't operate only in eukaryotic cells, but also in prokaryotic cells. That means the last universal common ancestor had to have a regulated cell division. And that had to be also fully formed and functional in place from day one. When the first replication event happened, all these regulators had to be in place. So there is no answer how this happened on early Earth by natural
So,
means.
are you saying that essentially this leads to the conclusion that, based upon the naturalistic evolutionary paradigm model, that they would need a progenitor to eukaryotic and prokaryotic cells? Is this what you're basically saying?
You know, the problem, Smokey, is that the mainstream narrative is that all life forms, they descend from one common ancestor, from a last universal common ancestor. But there are huge problems, because the machinery for DNA replication, for example, in eukaryotic cells and in prokaryotic cells that are bacteria and eukarya, the replication machinery is different. It's not the same. And that is one of 7 problems which I am listing, which they don't have the common machinery. So how do you explain that? It is hard to be explained,
Mm,
you know.
mm, indeed.
And And
Well,
that,
not for us.
yeah, of course not for us, because we believe that God created each of the life forms separately and for its specific function. But the problem goes deeper. For example, um, the energy cycles, like the nitrogen cycle and the carbon cycle, the water cycle, and the rare mineral cycle and the sulfur cycle, all these cycles, they depend on microorganisms, on bacteria. Especially the nitrogen cycle depends on several different bacteria which work in a joint venture together to fix nitrogen and to make ammonia, which is essential for the basic building blocks of life, like DNA and RNA and amino acids and phospholipids. So if you don't have that from day one, then where did the fixed ammonia come from? And that is a major abiogenesis problem. They don't have an explanation for that. So what do they say? They say that the last universal common ancestor, nitrogenase, which is the enzyme which fixes ammonia, was already present. Now, if you go to check how complex that nitrogenase is, it is mind blowing, because
Mm,
it dinitrogen in the atmosphere is bound by three bondings, and to break that bond, it is very, very difficult. And nitrogenase use 6 cycles to break the bond, and they need a huge amount of energy to perform that. And they are three different parts in the protein, in the holoprotein, and they have metal cofactors with molybdenum to perform this enzymatic reaction. So
wow.
it is a fantastically complex procedure, and they claim that enzyme was already extant in the first life form. So that's a huge problem. How do you explain the origin of nitrogenase? If you
Indeed.
want, we can have a look at it, but
Sure.
it's phenomenal. That is a true nanomolecular machine of extraordinary efficiency and complexity.
Incredible. Incredible. Now, and this is what would be the claim, the first building, the first step of life, essentially, that they're aware of. Is this kind of the claim?
Yes, they claim
Okay.
that there was a minimal last universal common ancestor which gave life to um, all different life forms and cells. But
Okay. So something before the first cells were actually cells is what we're talking about, right?
uh, well, what they say is that there was just one primordial cell which gave rise to eukaryotes and prokaryotes, to all
Okay.
different cells.
All right.
You
Now I'm
know,
following
that
you.
is
Okay.
that is the root of life.
Gotcha.
So that's why they claim that there is common ancestry. Because
But
if
they
they
do they
would
know
say
what that
that
cell
life,
is? Like, do we know what that cell is, or we're just they just kind of assume that and guess at
well,
it?
well, they have some proposals in 2016. They came out with the minimal cell, which has about 438 proteins and about 470 genes, something like that. But I did investigate this, and I think that the a minimal cell must be much more complex, because they did not include all the machinery to make amino acids. They say, oh, the first cell just did get the amino acids from nature, from the external environment. But that is just a hogwash claim, because first of all, 8 of the amino acids used in life, they have never been synthesized in a laboratory with a prebiotic environment.
Mm,
So there is no evidence that these amino acids existed on early Earth.
indeed. Amen. That's a good point, Atangelo. Thank you for that.
Let me check if I. Okay, I got it.
And by the way, that is seemingly the ongoing issue with the abiogenesis research, is the idea that they're constantly jerry rigging nature, forcing the infusion of intelligent design into all of the experiments to take them outside the realm of anything that would have been occurring in prebiotic Earth. And then they present it to us as some sort of evidence of naturalism, when it's the exact evidence of the essentiality of incredibly complex, intelligent minds being put in and infused into the work of even assembling the most basic and, dare I say, not even usable components of human life.
Okay, here we have the enzyme.
By the way, and I'm not sure, maybe you could mention this. This was one of my questions I had during your debated tangent. I didn't know if it was appropriate for a moderator to ask.
Cofactors.
I didn't know if it was appropriate for a moderator to ask a question, so I just didn't. Um, something had come up. Oh gosh, where was my brain now? Something had come up. Okay, maybe it'll come back to me. I'm sorry. Go ahead. It's probably about what you're about to go into. I'm sorry. If it comes back to me, I'll stop you.
Okay. Um, okay, this is the enzyme. And you see it has three different cofactors, and it is very complex. You see molybdenum and iron has to be imported inside to the cell, and that is also really a journey in order to import these stuff and then to make such a cofactor which you see here that's extremely complex. And um, that is one of the most complex molybdenum cofactors used in life. So you have the most complex stuff right theoretically at the beginning of life.
Interesting.
Here, this is very interesting. You have three enzymes which shuttle energy in order to have the function, the enzymatic reaction of nitrogenase. And it has to be each cycle when it's like a sledgehammer, you cut the bond and then you have to recharge the enzyme with energy, and then you cut it again 6 times in a circle until the dinitrogen is cut into ammonia, and the bond is fully cut. So how do you explain that? Why would random molecules on early Earth have the goal to perform that extremely complex reaction?
Indeed.
That is an illustration here. You see, you have here two bonded dinitrogen, and then in the end it's separated, and now it can enter into the biological cycle in the form of ammonia.
Oh, interesting.
And that is then incorporated into the DNA and RNA bases.
Wow.
The base has nitrogen and carbon. So you need that in order to make the basic building blocks of life. This is a prerequisite to have life.
Wow. Yeah, and there's no explanation for that in any type of actual scientific observable model. Just naturalistic conjecture, I guess. Eh, Tangelo?
Well, the question is, how do you make this kind of complex machinery on early Earth without evolution?
That's a good point.
You
Well,
don't
the
have
evolution
evolution at that
requires
point.
a population. You would have to, I imagine, if you were following consistently to the evolutionary way of thinking, that you would have to have a whole population of early cells, some of which would be functional and useful, and some of which would not. So you're not really talking about just the random morphogenesis, I guess if I'm using the term correctly, of the first, progenitor cell, the first simple cell. But you're talking about probably the generation of a whole bunch of them. And then you have a few that just so happen to build these components correctly, the right way, all in their synchronicity and perfect synergy and functional specificity. And that is the one. That was the golden ticket. And that one just gave rise to everything. Now, Atangelo, I'm going to level with you. Such a thing I would classify, from my perspective, as an extraordinary claim. Now, do you think that they have provided something that would even be considered sufficient evidence for such an extraordinary claim?
There is no evidence at all that this could happen by natural means. Absolutely no way. We are talking here about extremely complex machinery, which has to merge all at once, all fully functional. If you have just one cell cycle missing, you don't have replication.
Mm. How about that? How about that, folks?
So look the beauty of this enzyme here. This is glutamine synthetase, and that is like a computer. It exactly measures the need of the cell of ammonia and then shuttles it to where it is needed.
Ah, indeed, indeed. That's quite an amazing mechanism there, Atangelo.
Yeah, this is all regulated with the metabolic network. This is not just random import of stuff. This is all the cell regulates and knows exactly what it needs, and then if it's too much, it stops the import, and when it's too low, the supply, then it will adapt to that. This is all controlled by metabolic networks.
The operation of it itself almost gives the illusion of intelligence, Atangelo, as if the thing itself, the operable mechanisms that are doing these things operate with a level of discernment. Is that maybe the appropriate word?
Yeah. Now I would like uh, give you attention here and read that. That is very interesting.
Oh, and by
Glutamine
the way,
synthetases.
Standing for Truth is in the room. Welcome, brother. It's so good to see you. He says, "Great job against Tony Reed. I want to debate him now." So, Standing is your fan on that, and I also thought you did a great job.
Cool, cool. So let me show you this enzyme. Glutamine
Beautiful.
synthetase has been likened or compared to a molecular computer. With its 12 interacting subunits arranged in two rings of 6, it senses the amounts of the amino acids and nucleotides ultimately constructed from the ammonia and in glutamine. Glutamine synthetase weights the concentrations of each, computes whether there is an overall deficit or excess, and turns on or off based on the result. Isn't that fantastic? And
That is
that
absolutely fantastic.
and that had to emerge prior when life began.
Just the sublime. It's just such. It's got so much finesse to it. Like the design has a sense of artistry to it, in the sense of just how it just seems to almost have foreshadowing knowledge of what it needs, what it will need to be able to do and continue to do in order to continue to exist. There's a seemingly sense of forethought inside the informational design itself that really does just blow my mind.
Now, what is fantastic as well, Smokey, is that enzymes they communicate within inside of the enzyme. They have communication channels inside of the enzyme.
Mm.
Now think about that. That is a literal computer which senses the molecules in the surrounding, senses what is needed, and then shuttles the materials that are needed to where they are needed.
Wow. How
They
about
have
that?
literal feedback mechanisms to do so,
Incredible.
and that synthetase is found in all organisms. So it is life essential because it controls the ammonia rate in the cell.
Wow. How about that?
Yeah.
It has to know how to do it, how much to do it. Just perfect balance, synergy. Just the
And here,
my
and here
goodness.
you have the mechanism how it is regulated. There is a whole regulation mechanism of that enzyme which senses which amino acids that are low and which are too many on them in the cell, and then regulates the quantity which is in the cell, because this all requires energy to make amino acids. So the cell is extremely efficient because it has all these regulatory mechanisms.
Right. Right. Yeah, see, something like that just really does blow my mind. Like when the atheists start saying, "Oh, all that is it's just chemicals. Chemicals are telling it to do all that." Like what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah. I was before that I started this chat. I was at Pudding's channel, and then
I saw you.
yeah, and then a guy said, "Well, that's all chemical reactions, but what we see is not simply chemical reactions. What we see is uh, uh, technology in the highest efficiency and order."
Indeed. Indeed. I have noticed, Tangelo, maybe you will back me up on this. It almost seems like the atheists are starting to run away from the abiogenesis debates in many regards. It seems like only the more ignorantly confident seem to be willing to still debate it. A lot. I mean, look at it this way. Tony Reed, during your conversation, I thought kind of avoided at all cost attempting to talk about that. In my conversation with Jackson Wheat, I got him to basically concede that God did abiogenesis. I've seen people in standings debates, I forget who exactly to name a name, but have also avoided or tried to avoid at all cost discussing abiogenesis. Jackson Wheat, in his debate to me, literally said he's not going to debate abiogenesis before he started saying anything. It's now, Tangelo, I'm almost wondering if we may have exposed a crack in the armor that these people, these religious scientismists, are possibly getting a little scared of maybe debating the incoherent religiosity that they're potentially promoting in abiogenesis. What do you think?
Well, do you know what caused me surprise yesterday in my debate with Tony when I brought up the chance to have a first minimal proteome with 1,300 proteins, and the chance is 10 to the 700,000. Did you remember what he answered? He said, "Oh, I live in Las Vegas and I see luck every day with roulette." But
Yeah, I remember that. That was such a ridiculous blackjack or royal
that was
flushes
ridiculous.
or yeah, no, it was
Wow.
yeah, that was a crazy dumb analogy. That was a little tough to choke down, but yeah, absolutely.
That was ridiculous. I
That was
mean,
really ridiculous. Yeah.
but you know what I see, that many atheists, when you bring them these numbers, they don't really stop to think about what that means,
They
because
don't. And by the
that
way, let me you know what?
kills,
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Atangelo.
yeah, that kills literally the materialistic worldview just with that evidence. And they just go over it and simply do not recognize it, as Tony didn't yesterday.
Okay, so here's the deal. Here's Tony's analogy. All right, so he talks about how they get a royal flush, like all the time. Like someone will be there and they'll get a royal flush, and of course, you have millions of people playing, probably all over the place. But I guess he's talking about, is he in Las Vegas or something like that? So a whole bunch of people are playing, and yeah, I don't know if he's saying the odds that a bunch of people get it every day, but the odds of getting it in a royal flush, straight flush. Royal flush, in the case of the straight flush, can be formed four ways, one for each suit, giving a probability of 0.000154%. Basically, one chance in 650,000. Okay, that's a pretty reasonable probability. That's nowhere near close one chance in 10 to the 100 billionth power for the first, cell to actually emerge naturalistically. And that's why his analogy is just completely asinine.
Yeah. Do you know, today in the afternoon when I posted the article which we are talking about, an atheist, he wrote me here in Messenger, you have a very intriguing take on life, and honestly, I can't say I disagree as much anymore. I often feel everything can't be an accident or just a coincidence. Can you help me understand your position better? Isn't that nice?
That is nice, actually. That's sweet. I like that. Those are that's the type of things that really kind of recharges your batteries a little bit.
Yeah. I am surprised because this is very difficult to find such an admission from someone um, which is on the atheist camp and recognizing that chance isn't a good explanation.
Right. Well, that's why it's good to keep doing it, because we're going to get the I'm going to use, well, all right, I'm just going to use the word. Everyone here will know what I mean, but the reprobates, the ones that are clearly in a state of absolute denial, nonsensical rejection, almost seemingly like they have the hardest heart possible, and all they want to do is attack. We're not likely going to be able to reach them, even in biblical context, but we can use them and use their terrible argumentation and sometimes even their vitriol to help the fence sitters kind of align closer to truth. And I love that you are doing this with your channels and pointing to all this, Atangelo, because it is important. The scientific community has been infused with religious dogma, naturalistic religious dogma that has been masquerading as science. And I find it obtuse, offensive, and frankly, I think it is actually the classical definition of indoctrination, as much as the atheists hypocritically say that we are guilty of indoctrination by daring to present the idea that such incredible intellectual complexity would require some sort of origin. Oh no, how dare we? No, but them getting to shoehorn in their unproven, unfalsifiable, nonsensical, religious, naturalistic dogma, and yet somehow can hypocritically claim that is not indoctrination, I struggle.
Yeah, unfortunately. And you see, yesterday I pointed out to Tony that there is actually absolutely no reason why to exclude intelligent design at schools as a possible explanation. Just present it like evolution and let the children make up their minds what they think is
Exactly.
more compelling. So why exclude one possible explanation a priori?
Because they want to hypocritically virtue signal about indoctrination while they indoctrinate. The fascistic parties of the secular movements of the past did the same thing. Do not, by the way, yeah, don't be deluded into thinking that the modern atheist is not some more evolved version of the ancient secular social cancer that every society has had to deal with. They're just a different version, a different reiteration of it. They're just as cancerous and toxic as they've always been.
Yeah, yeah. Now you can see here this is a basic metabolic network to make amino acids and DNA
Mm.
with the central metabolic cycles, like the
How about that?
3-carboxylic acid cycle here, and uh, glycolysis and so forth. Now you can think about this, Smokey, that these abiogenesis research investigations, what they try to come up with is an explanation how the basic building blocks came to be on early Earth without this enzymatic metabolic network here, but
Interesting.
just on early Earth. So now let us suppose that they are even capable to come up with an explanation how the DNA and RNA and amino acids and so forth came up on early Earth. So let's suppose that they have actually an answer to that. So now, how do you go from this existence to that kind of a complex metabolic network?
Through an incredible, proficiently advanced supernatural intelligence would be my answer.
Yeah, that's the only way. I mean, that's. I think that the whole exemplification with the jumbo, with the 747, uh, um, scrambling a junkyard and then making a tornado going up through a junkyard and then making a 747 is a perfect example how crazy that naturalism is. And how did they avoid to acknowledge this? They said, well, evolution explains it, but the origin of life is not about evolution. So you have to come up with this kind of complexity prior to life starting at the last universal common ancestor. Now they remove these metabolic networks and say, oh, the first cells, they just got the amino acids from the environment, you know. But even if that were true, how do you go from such a first cell to cells that actually synthesize their building blocks enzymatically and get this kind of complex
Well,
networks here?
see, and that's what I think the only answer that they could possibly say, and certainly it's incoherent and nonsensical, but is to say that just a whole bunch of these cells that worked and didn't work all popped up, and one of them popped up with this level of extreme, incredible, like functional specificity. Like one of them, one of these things amongst a whole bunch of cells all over the place that were not this complex or functional with wires crossed and things like that. But this one, ladies and gentlemen, this one emerged. And they can't even explain in an environment where that would ever even be possibly remotely viable, where you have an early prebiotic Earth that's just randomly abiogenesis, morphogenesis, just randomly creating all this crap like this in a whole bunch of varying forms, and then you get one that works. Do people have any idea how insane you sound when you pitch this stuff to us?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is good that we expose what is at stake here in terms of what they have to explain. And I think many people, they are really not aware about the complexity to come up with the first living cell. And in the last few weeks, it was really enlightening for me to understand that their minimal sized cell is just made up because a minimum is about 1,300 proteins and a genome with about 1.3 million base pairs. You know, it is far more complex. In order to have the metabolic pathways to make the 20 amino acids, the complexity of a free living cell is much more complex than one which is a pathogen, which is actually feeding on other organisms like Mycoplasma. They say Mycoplasma is the smallest possible living organism, but it is a pathogen which is depending on a host organism in order to feed. And of course, that was not existing on a prebiotic Earth. So, what is a model is a bacteria which is free living and which actually produces by itself all the basic building blocks which it requires, like the amino acids, DNA, phospholipids, and carbohydrates. And such a bacteria has about 1.3 million base pairs. Now, hey, how do you get 1.3 million base pairs by chance? If the chance is 10 to the 700,000 power.
Yeah. Yeah, nothing but intellectually bankrupt analogies and worthless, religious rhetoric is all the atheists seem to throw at us anymore. Especially when you get down to stuff like this, Angelo. I like this. I like focusing on this level of the argumentation. I do think a lot of effort, and probably rightfully so, has been spent at the evolution debate and poking holes in that and the assumptions that are there. But you know what? This is a whole different ballgame. Once we get down to this level, they have nothing. They literally have nothing. They have nothing but religious rhetoric, dogma, nonsense, conjecture, desperation, any attempt possible to try and justify their vain attempts to cling to the possible outer edge of probability that they live in a reality with no divine agent. And it's just, I really am starting to wonder. Maddox's points about an atheist fantasy land projection complex, I think, are very, very likely. This level of incredible, nonsensical, irrational blanket denial that we keep seeing on a regular basis is really staggering.
Yes. I want to come back to the topic of our
Sure.
talk.
Absolutely. Thank you
And
for sharing all that. That was very informative. Thank you, Atangelo.
yeah, now you can see here a list of 15 different things which have to be specified in regards of cells. Explaining organismal form depends on explaining how organs, tissues, and cells form and gain shape. On the lowest level of the hierarchy, the formation of cells in a multicellular organism depends on the specification of morphogenesis of eukaryotic cell structure and shape. So I want to stop just at the first point. We have 15 different things that have to be specified, but the first point is very important. What shape does a cell in an organ have? Like a blood cell has a completely different shape than a neuron. Okay,
Oh, okay.
so so I want to show you how complex that it is to provide the shape and morphology
And
of a
now the
eukaryotic
shape,
cell.
just to clarify, the shape is an essential component to its functionality as well. Would we say this?
Yes, because through the shape you make sheets and tissues, and
Are you still there, Tangelo?
of course, if you want to have a macro shape, then you have it is composed by cells which contribute to the shape of macro. So whenever someone is talking about macroevolution, it means that on a cell level there has to be change as well in regards of phenotype and physiology of each cell individually. So I have never seen in all these debates people discussing that level uh, of on that level what is required on a cell level.
Mm.
You don't see that. They come up with paleontology and comparison of dinosaurs and so stuff, but this is completely irrelevant. What has to be debated are the mechanisms on a molecular level,
Amen.
and that's what exactly am investigating and studying. I will just go through for you to have an idea, just to get the morphology of each cell, what is required. It is really astonishingly complex.
Indeed. Indeed. Yeah. Walk us through it. Yeah. Give us an example. Give us a little taste of it here, Tangelo.
Yeah, I'm just screening through for you to have an idea. For example, spectrines is fascinating. They are building a skeleton below the cell membrane with this structure here.
Wow. Talk about actual legitimate, like, complex structural engineering. Look at that, guys. Is
Yeah.
that not now? That is the type of structure, if I'm not mistaken, we see in bridge works all the time. It's extremely tensile resistant and has ability to really displace weight and pressure very, very appropriately. Here we have an originator of the type of structure that we modern architects, modern bridge builders, modern engineers will take advantage of to this day. And it knew to use this type of structure, to have this type of structure for its function. That is incredible.
Now look, for example, at this one here. You see here that form of cell, and here you need forces to minimize the surface of that part of the cell, okay?
Mm.
So these filaments here, these are actin filaments, and they exercise forces through these myosin molecules here, and they literally constrict. How can I say that in English? they exercise forces to diminish the surface on the top of the cell here. Okay.
Oh, okay, so they can basically retract and expand type of.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes, yes, exactly. So what happens? This is instructed through signals.
Okay.
That movement here is based on these myosins. I show that later down,
Okay.
and these are kind of forms that are induced by signals, by specific signals. So the basic requirement to have cell form is signaling.
Wow. Wow. Signaling with an intention, with a information behind it, with a code, you would almost say, something in the
Yes.
abstract. Yeah.
Yes, you need codified information in order to to signal and instruct.
Well, yeah, I don't know how you could have instruction without information. I don't know how you could possibly make an argument to the contrary.
Here, for example, you have this is a signaling pathway. It's called sonic hedgehog, and you see these points here.
Hmm.
Okay, so this is inside the cell. This is the cell membrane here, and what does it do? He sends these molecules here, and there is a concentration. And when this concentration here happens, then it is folded. The cell is folded here.
Interesting.
So you have here the first, the geometric, here it is a plane sheet,
Uh-huh.
okay? And when there is a concentration of morphogenes here, then the curvature appears.
Interesting.
And this is all instructed by signaling networks, by information.
Wow. It's just not a naturalistic automatic chemical reaction. It's programmed to do
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. This is of course something that is just claimed by uninformed atheists. Let's have a look at this here.
Hmm.
This is part of the actin network. That is also one of the four scaffolding networks in the cell, which actually makes the form of the cell.
Hmm. How about that? Yeah, Paul Ross has a good point. He says it doesn't matter what evidence we show to demonstrate the work of intelligent agency. The naysayer is committed to rejecting it a priori. They have a deep seated phobia of personal agency. I agree with that.
This ARP2-3 complex, it makes like how can I say, a crossroad. on the actin filaments in order to form like a web structure.
Wow.
I'll show you the web structure. Okay, this is fascinating. You see here, this is the structure here. Here, look at this.
How about that?
This is all the scaffolds to make the shape of the cell. All this here.
Incredible. Incredible. Yeah, I mean, just
This is
the
nice to watch.
ability, yeah, the ability to know how to do all that, the ability to know the necessity up to do all that is just like how does each one of these components know that it needs to do exactly what it needs to do in order for basically the whole system to function at all? Like it's just the actual intelligence inside the machinery itself is just staggering to me.
Yeah. And you have to have each of these molecules in the right shape so they can join together and make a filament.
Mm. Wow. That's outrageous. Yeah.
This is comparable to make a scaffold to build a house.
Yeah, absolutely. Programmed to detach as well, not just
So
attach,
what
but also
yeah.
detach.
So what this is doing, it is forming this kind of filaments here. Okay?
Okay.
And these filaments, they um, they are responsible, co-responsible to shape the form of the cell.
Amazing.
And this is a motor protein which literally walks on actin.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned that before. Yeah, it literally walks, like literally actually steps along or something like that.
Here,
Like pretty
here,
amazing.
yeah, here. It, yeah, it's literally walking here. Like, for example, it takes a mitochondria and brings it to another cell. And
That
literally
is,
walking on actin. Literally walking.
it's the like a cell truck, like a
Yeah.
transport truck or something like that,
Uh-huh.
like a freight
Yeah.
truck.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Exactly. And now all these proteins are required here to be joined together.
Wow.
You see, these are the actin filaments, and they are responsible to shape the cell in order to have precisely that kind of structure here.
That really is something, Tangela, I tell you.
So this is just, I have not studied everything. I mean, I could go on for weeks,
Mm,
but it already illustrates very nicely what we are, what kind of complexity that is required just to have the shape of the cell. And that doesn't
indeed.
say anything yet of the other 15 points that are required that have to be specified.
My.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
here, this is,
incredible. Once again, kudos to you, Atangelo, putting together an incredible amount of information and resources here.
so here is the whole list of the mechanisms. 38 different mechanisms responsible. They're all here.
Wow.
And you can see here, I underline what each of one does. One mediates, the other provokes change, the other organizes, the other signals, the other provides positioning rules, another modulates, another orients, another helps organize, another directs, another coordinates, another informs, another activates, another senses, another signals, another makes gradients, another activates, guides, regulates. So this is a factory literally and performing many different tasks based on information, on signal information. You see signaling is all over here. Signaling, again, signaling, sensing, signaling, signaling. How many times do you see here signaling? That is how it's performed.
Mm,
That's how it directs the whole part of mechanisms which are performed, the mechanistic part in the cell. So there is that's I on the article. There is on the one side there is the information part which is signaling, and on the other side is the mechanistic part where the cells are manipulated in order to get the form that they have required to have.
indeed. Indeed.
And the article which I posted on Facebook is basically just a resume of all that. So here we can go over it again. Following activities are performed by at least 36 different signaling molecules and mechanisms. 8 molecules signal, 4 orient, 5 activate, 2 direct, 3 promote, 2 regulate, 1 guides, another 3 organize, 1 informs, another coordinates, 1 specifies, 1 modulates, 1 provides position cues, 2 mediate, 1 provokes change. So this is all the part of instructing what to do.
Mm,
And then is the second part, the molecules acting upon the instructional signals received, and that's the action performed. Form patterns, force change, stretch, change, and induce cell shape, move positions, orient, provoke ingress, express, align, deform, accumulate molecules, invaginate, extend, form a web, concentrate, hold together, give mechanical support, stiff stabilization, form geometry, polarity, form division plane positioning, phosphorylate, dephosphorylate, force transmission, couple molecules physically, form gradients, deform, pull forces, promote cell rounding, transduce, specify sulfate, extend, provide structural links, form aspect ratio and size, form filament ends, and so forth.
wow.
So this is what happens. Information is required to specify the making of the molecules that provide instructional information, the engineers. So we have 36 different molecules which are just employed to signal and instruct in the cell what to do. This is amazing. And we
It
can
is amazing.
compare that to engineers, which are essential to direct the molecular actors to perform their actions in an orchestrated manner. So these 36 mechanisms, they need to work together in a joint venture, as you said before. But information is also required to specify the making of the molecules and domains that are the actors in the grand scheme, the workers in the factory. And in cells, there are dozens of different engineer signaling molecules which direct the factory workers, the actors, in their job, which perform all these actions which are described here. In an engineer's department, the individual engineers must elaborate their instruction plans in harmony as a team and joint venture and orchestrate the plan of action and coordinated instructions provided to the factory workers. So all this kind of activity described here must be coordinated in order to have a functional and and form of the cell which then is functional.
Wow.
But while in human enterprises, no steps human intelligence is involved in a plan of action to achieve a specific goal, in cells, everything is pre programmed and occurs without intelligent intervention. So, while in a factory there is a team of engineers and factory workers, they are all intelligent, what we see in cells, it's all pre programmed.
Hmm.
So this is a level of intelligence involved here, which instructs all that action once, and then on top of that, it self-replicates. That's just wow.
Indeed. Indeed.
And his cells are 100% autonomous interlinked factory parks with the director department, which also operates in a fully pre-programmed manner. Cell factories are not static. They work in a dynamic network together with their neighbor cells and even distant cell factory parks in a joint venture to form tissues, organs, organ systems, and organisms made of trillions of cells. So cells, they do not communicate just with neighboring cells, but also with distant cells. They communicate through bioelectric codes, and that's just
Wow.
crazy. That's just
That's mind
crazy.
blowing. Yeah,
Yeah,
that is mind blowing.
yeah. And all working together in a coordinated fashion. And this is here the bioelectric code. I will read it because this is really mind blowing.
It's kind of like what Tony and I had been saying for some time now about the abiogenesis, type of arguments. Is we'll give you all the building blocks, we'll give you everything you need to build a cell. You still won't be able to do a stinking thing with it. The amount of information, programming, coding, complex like information theory you'd have to apply to tell any of those things to do anything. Like, I mean, you're just talking about an intelligence that we can't even possibly fathom.
Yeah. And this now is really fascinating. I will read this. One of the widely debated key questions in evolutionary biology is the traditional claims based on genetic mutations, natural selection, drift, and gene flow explain sufficiently the creation and maintenance of organismal form complex biological systems from cellular to body, guiding morphogenesis. The recent groundbreaking scientific discoveries are demonstrating that one key issue, cell migration, is not due to chance in allele frequencies in genes, but endogenous electric currents and fields generated by molecules program the formation of extracellular molecular gradients, which play an instructive role guiding and generating cues of the migratory trajectory of cells to their end destination in the body during development. Complex pattern formation requires mechanisms to coordinate individual cell behavior towards the anatomical needs of the organism. Alongside the well-studied biochemical and genetic signals functions an important and powerful system of bioelectrical communication. All cells, not just excitable nerve and muscle, utilize ion channels and pumps to drive standing gradients of ion content and transmembrane resting potential. Bioelectrical properties are key determinants of cell migration, differentiation, and proliferation. Spatiotemporal gradients of transmembrane voltage potentials are instructive cues that encode positional information and organ identity and thus regulates the creation and maintenance of large-scale shape. In a variety of model systems, it is now clear that the bioelectric pre-patterns function during embryonic development, organ regeneration, and cancer suppression. So you have here a totally distinct mechanism to genetic information organizing complex organisms.
Yeah, that's pretty astounding, Atangelo. Seriously.
So you hear that diagram shows that there is the genetic code which makes proteins, but there is the bioelectric code which directs the cells to then in the end form shape, so to form the organismal structures. So this is a killer of evolutionary theory.
Yeah. Wow.
there is a lot of information here about this, and it's really fantastic. And this is just one of 17 different mechanisms that I mentioned that are responsible for organismal development and shape. This is just one.
Yeah, it's incredible. I'm really glad you're getting yourself onto the debate sphere a bit too, Tangelo, with this big wealth of information you've collected.
Yeah.
Not just calling the atheist experience to get hung up on.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That is. That is. I mean, they are full in denial state, so they are not really interested in listening what we have to say.
Clearly.
They just want to have an argument to draw us down to their
Well, why do you think
ignorance.
I don't call them?
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, I think someday, Tangelo, pray for it. Someday, Smokey will become so big and loud that they won't be able to ignore me, and they'll feel compelled to call my show, and then Smokey will have won.
yeah, yeah. I think it's good that I am moving forward and what is happening here with this channel and so on, and we can discuss this, and people can join us and see what is going on. That's it. That
Absolutely.
is a great development that we are experiencing now, and it's really a new kind of communication. And I'm
Exactly.
really,
I haven't seen a lot of the Christians out there doing a lot of this, particularly up at the apologetics channels. These types of really in-your-face, open, challenge us. Let's get down to the nitty and gritty of it. I'm glad to see kind of an emergence of this type of atmosphere happening. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. Speaking of which, there is an open
I,
mic for me tonight. So, anyone in the audience that wants to come by, I'll be doing it after the debate finishes up with Otangelo. And who are you debating? Otangelo? Snake. You're debating Snake.
yeah,
So, after that
yeah,
wraps up, I will start my live open mic Q&A, Saturday night open mic Q&A. So, everyone, please come by and enjoy and support it.
yeah. Okay, how much are we online now? Uh, 1 hour and
About an hour
17.
and 15 minutes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I probably have to cut out here for about 3 minutes or so because I want to grab a quick little snack before I start my 2 o'clock debate review. I wanted to. There's something I've been wanting to tackle for a while. I kept putting it off, but I'm just working it into the schedule today because I'm working on a couple other response videos to a couple dumpster fires out there. So this is just one of the things I'm going to do today and enjoy it.
yeah. I will just link to the 17 mechanisms that are required for organismal complexity, and then we will uh, end our
Beautiful.
chat here.
Cool. Sounds good.
Okay, here they are. These are the main mechanisms. There can be more. Certainly, more mechanisms will be discovered, but these are the ones that I have listed so far. They are the gene regulatory network, various signaling pathways, at least 23 epigenetic codes, cell-cell communication, chromatin dance in the nucleus, post-transcriptional modifications of histones, the DNA methylation code, homeobox and Hox genes, non-coding DNA, junk DNA, which has function, transposons and retrotransposons, centrosomes, the precise arrangement of the cytoskeletal arrays. This has to do with what we have looked into today. Then membrane targets provide crucial information, spatial coordinates for embryological development. Ion channels and electromagnetic fields. This is what we just talked about.
Mm.
The sugar code on the surface of cells, that is the glycan code, which is more complex than the genetic code. It is absolutely fantastic, and science has no clue yet to how to break that code and understand what it means. Egg polarity genes and hormones. So there are 17 different mechanisms which are responsible for organismal complexity and architecture. That blows genetic centric views of evolution. That
Mm.
that here means the burial of macroevolution.
Indeed. I compel all of our brothers and sisters to start asking the atheists to provide us their sufficient evidence for this extraordinary claim of information, basically origin for all of this type of complex machinery and functionality. I think that if they are going to claim that this can emerge from a naturalistic paradigm, they damn well be able to prove it, or at least provide some sort of actual arguable evidence to to that fact. I don't respect them anymore coming and saying that I just have to believe it because science will figure it out someday. You know what? No. You know, you guys are the ones that have stopped thinking. You accuse us of being the ones that stopped thinking about it, stopped considering it. And it's the complete opposite. You guys are the ones that stop thinking about it until science tells you what to think, or scientism tells you what to think. And it's not respectable. It's not a position worthy of respect in my book, frankly. So,
The good thing, Smokey, is that until now, what we on the creationist camp have basically done is just pointing out why evolution doesn't work. Okay?
right.
Now, we have, with this information that I am sharing here, we can say what replaces evolution.
Mm. Amen. I like that. I like that. That's
And
kind of the
and I
fixating argument that I've been focusing on too on our channel over there, which is that this is a strong, if not deductive, at least inductive reasoning to the origin of the existence of life, the origin of life. And I think that if they're going to pitch something to the contrary that is outside the realm of mathematical possibility, then they better have a darn good argumentation or evidence that is equally sufficient to that level of outside probability. Um,
what I say now, what they have to demonstrate is that their mechanism, which I am demonstrating here, and this is based on peer-reviewed science papers, and what evolution is replaced with is the big umbrella contributor to explain organismal complexity is pre-programmed instructional complex information encoded in various languages and communication through various signaling networks that act on a structural level, which are pre-instructed to respond to environmental cues, development, and nutrition demands. This is the what replaces evolution. And of course, pre-programmed instructional complex information comes always from intelligence. So it comes from our
yeah.
creator.
I'd respect the scientific community almost more at this point if they'd start at least giving it credit to like aliens or something. Because like even trying to engage in naturalistic expectations for all of this right now just feels like desperate sophistry. And let me tell you a quick little interesting thing, about how science sometimes works. Okay, there is legit. Okay, legit. I'm not lying about this. There is a legit contingency plan that is on the books for what to do in case we're attacked by aliens. And they got some of the smartest scientific minds in the world together to try and ascertain and understand if a race got here, what would they be like? What would their capabilities be like? Things like that. Now, this is the type of scientific deductive reasoning that they apply to something like this. Let me give you an example. They know that nuclear weapons would be useless against them. Now, that's quite a statement. We don't even know whether or not there's aliens, let alone they'd show up here. So how the heck could we possibly know that they would definitely, definitively, undoubtedly be impervious to nuclear weapons? Well, it has to do with their level of either metallurgy or shielding to be able to travel through space as fast as or faster than the speed of light and not have minor little particles interacting with them with the force of, so many trillions of megaton bombs. When you're moving that fast, even a tiny, tiny, tiny little object, little particle, little piece of mass hitting you is just catastrophically atomic almost in terms of its explosive potential. So, we understand from that deductively that they would most likely be impervious to just about any type of weapon that we could throw at them. And this is what's on the books there. So we do use philosophy and science deductively to come to reasonable conclusions about the nature of reality behind what we can just see and prove observably. And the creation, the scientismists, the evolutionists, the neo-Darwinists, all these guys want to stop. They want to stop the progress of philosophical scientific thought for the sake of projecting their religious conjecture and their dogmatic biases. And I am losing a lot of respect for the atheists that are promoting this garbage and condescendingly passing themselves off as something positive, progressive, or intelligent. So thank you for letting me say that, and thank you for inviting me here at Tangelo. This was a good time. Thank you for that.
Okay, Smokey, once again, I thank you for being with me here at my channel. It was a pleasure once again, and hope that we can do this again and again, and move forward in our understanding of our existence, molecular biology, and origins.
Amen, brother. Amen to that, and you certainly have my full support.
Great. So thank you for the audience, and see you next time. Bye bye.
Take care, guys. God bless.